Welcome back to Barebone Truth. Y'all, Trump, in his own words, is trying to make DC great again, and he is going throughout the state cleaning out the homeless encampments. And he's doing that by giving these people one of two options. You're either going to allow us to help you to relocate to another state, or you're going to be fined and jailed.
We're moving the encampments away. There are many places that they can go, and we're going to help them as much as you can help.
President Trump says federal officials will be removing homeless encampments across Washington, D.C. as part of his effort to, quote, clean up the nation's capital and make it great again. In the past, the president said his administration would give people places to stay far from Washington, D.C. And yesterday, the White House press secretary said unsheltered people could also be jailed.
Homeless individuals will be given the option to leave their encampment, to be taken to a homeless shelter, to be offered addiction or mental health services, and if they refuse, they will be susceptible to fines or to jail time.
He had talked in one of his social media posts about moving them very far outside of the city. Is that off?
No, it's not off. We're exploring how we could do that.
The Trump administration is working to get rid of encampments, and advocates for the homeless are worried about people being traded inhumanely, as it's not clear how this strategy by the Trump administration will in any way help those who are homeless in the district. There were more than 5,600 homeless people in D.C. in 2024, but the majority of those people already stay in emergency shelters. Still, on any given night in Washington, D.C., there are around 800 unsheltered people on the streets. The D.C. Deputy Mayor for Health and Human Services told NBC News they could increase the city's shelter space as needed. But it's still unclear what would happen if the treatment, shelters, and even jails that the White House is mentioning are at capacity.
Do you have any specifics about how homeless people will be dealt with, where they would be moved to? What does this look like?
I do, yes, and it's an important question, so thank you for raising it. The Metropolitan Police Department, with the support of the new federal agencies who have been surging on the streets of the District of Columbia, are going to enforce the laws that are already on the books here in Washington, D.C. For far too long, these laws have been completely ignored, and the homelessness problem has ravaged the city. So D.C. Code 22-1307 and D.C. Municipal Regulation 24-100 give the Metropolitan Police Department the authority to take action when it comes to homeless encampments. So homeless individuals will be given the option to leave their encampment, to be taken to a homeless shelter, to be offered addiction or mental health services, and if they refuse, they will be susceptible to fines or to jail time. Again, these are pre-existing laws that are already on the books. They have not been enforced, which is part of the reason for this federalizing of the National Guard to bring in this assistance for law enforcement. While we are targeting criminals and trying to remove criminals off of the streets, we also want to make DC safe and beautiful, and that involves removing mentally disturbed individuals and homeless encampments as well. So we will be using these regulations and code that already exists to clean up our streets, and we've already had great success. Not many of you picked up on this, but the United States Park Police has actually done remarkable work in terms of removing homeless encampments from the city. Since the president signed this executive order in March, 70 homeless encampments have been removed by the U.S. Park Police. There are only 2 homeless encampments remaining in D.C. federal parks under the National Park Service's jurisdiction, and the removal of those 2 remaining camps is scheduled for this week. So the U.S. Park Police will be leading this effort alongside MPD.
Trump announced, starting this morning, all 50 states across the United States will completely eliminate homelessness. This time, we will thoroughly clean up the country. He spoke bluntly on social media, let our nation be safer and more beautiful than ever before. The policy is highly coercive. Those willing to leave will receive official assistance. Those who insist on staying will be directly classified as criminals. We will lock you up in the prison that belongs to you. There is no room for negotiation, no nice guy approach. Trump is confident, declaring that the speed will be as swift and efficient as the border changes, from millions flooding in over months to achieving zero. The operation has already begun in the dead of night. The president has begun deploying personnel from the U.S. Secret Service and Customs and Border Protection. As early as last night, these personnel could be seen patrolling the brightly lit nightlife districts of Washington, D.C. The homeless must leave our country. The campaign has begun in the Capitol, launching with force. The great President Trump.
So, as you've all heard it from the horse's mouth, they are moving these homeless people into, drug classes, drug addiction classes, and all these other good things that I'm very pro, I'm very for. But my thing is this. For example, in Japan, it is very difficult to find someone who is homeless. Like, it's not a common thing. Whereas in the United States, it's obviously a very big, very common thing, right? That's why this is happening to begin with. So once they take these people through the classes, they've done everything they can. What's next? Like, they can't just continue to go to these classes. And the ones that aren't abusing the system, the ones that actually do want to get better, where are they? They're going to need a form of income that will allow them to get an apartment, a townhouse, a rental of any kind, even a trailer park. You have to have some type of financial assistance. Because I was looking up some people that are getting kicked out of their houses. There are people who are getting kicked out of trailer homes. Like, who would have ever thought that would ever happen? Because I know that they are like the least quality types of housing, other than like like a homeless shelter, right? So what are they going to do with these people? Because the average person who's not homeless, they are already having problems paying rent, buying houses, buying their own car out cash, right? We're having problems doing that. So if we can't even find jobs, what makes you think someone who is homeless, who's been homeless for a very long time, doesn't have a residential address, so how are they going to receive mail? And they more than likely do not have a college education. What are we going to do with these people? And for those of you who are not yet convinced that this is actually happening, because California has said plenty of times that they're going to clean up the state, but they never actually do, hopefully these clips will prove otherwise. To every story, there are two sides. This one side I'm going to show you right now are the people that actually agree with what Trump is doing, and they are seeing an improvement in DC.
Tell me this is not benefiting us. It's definitely doing what it's supposed to do. I don't care who versus who, what they mean by what. Baby, it's clean and beautiful, like how we like.
Donald Trump isn't just making D.C. safe again, he's making it healthy again, because I can finally go on my Hot Boy walks again. Because you want to know why I couldn't go on my Hot Boy walks before? Because I didn't know if I took a stroll in D.C. whether or not I would run into a gaggle of game bangers, a cadre of criminals, or a youth who wanted to play patty cake with my forehead. But thanks to Donald Trump's leadership, I can finally go on these Hot Boy walks again. And look at me, I'm just a walking around town, looking around. I'm the neighborhood watch today. Let a YN do something. I'm calling the feds.
I remember going to the gas station in DC even just a month ago, and I would never do this. I mean, this is crazy. This is crazy. It's quiet, it's safe out here, man. It's safe. I remember a few months ago, my brother had his door open. Somebody carjacked him right here in Northeast, right up the street actually. Got carjacked, my SUV got taken. Look, y'all hear the helicopters out here? Oh yeah, we got the helicopters out here. Like, DC is safe.
Law and order. So Trump wants to federalize the police force in Washington, D.C. Make it safe again. I don't understand why people have a problem with public safety. Look at any major Democrat city and it's overrun with crime. Make it make sense. You know, any major city you think of, Detroit, Los Angeles, New York, Atlanta, you think about the inner city, you think about crime. Why is that? Well, I say it's because Democrats run those cities. Let's see what happens when a Republican runs a major city.
Now, let's hear what the people on the other side of the same coin has to say about everything that's going on in DC.
I think Trump's trying to help people. Some people, he try to get homeless out of the city, though. That ain't gonna work.
It's like a band-aid to like a gunshot wound. It's not like providing an actual solution to what the problem is.
I think they should move them out. They're everywhere. I've been homeless before, so I know how it is. I have empathy for them.
Sure, okay, you're moving it. It's going somewhere else. And I think it's difficult to find a unified solution.
I feel like there's been an increase of like racial profiling. They shouldn't be, I guess, criminalized to begin with.
The homeless thing is like, you might not see, poop on the sidewalk, but you still might get robbed.
High cost of living, not enough mental health resources. You remove people, but what problems does that fix? It doesn't really do anything for the health of the city, I feel like.
Give us a home. How about that? How about just giving people that need a home inside? Then we'd be inside. You just want to just throw us to the rats. I don't want to be homeless. I don't want to crowd anyone. I don't want to use anyone. I just want to be in a place to live. You never know why a person is homeless. I was homeless, rendered homeless, for sure, because my house was caught on fire.
I live in Washington, D.C., and a man named Victor, who's experiencing homelessness, who lives just a few blocks away from me and has been there for the past couple of years, he is here because he's close to resources. He is close to the food kitchen. He's close to the church that helps him out. He's close to public restrooms. He's close to public transportation. And same thing with this man experiencing homelessness. His name is Deshaun. He is oftentimes in front of our local drugstore. He's here because he's close to resources. So if you move them out, they are not close enough to a collection of places to help them out. And if more homeless people are coming to an urban center, it is probably the sign of a larger economic crisis. And while we are here, homeless people and violent crime, let's not conflate them, okay? Homeless people are much more likely statistically to be the victims of violent crime than they are to be the perpetrators. Victor and Deshaun are so sweet and so kind, and I love them so much.
Now, they gonna go somewhere. I ain't going nowhere now. Since I got toys and treat a shelter.
But they're going to arrest people all over the
No, I don't care what they doing. I don't care what they doing. Did he want bags, y'all? Did he want bags, y'all? They say we got choice. What the pillars say? What the pillars say? Building and breach. Yeah, we standing up for something. So what the paper say? What the paper say? So since the shelter not gonna take our property, in handcuffs for Martin Luther King, Thomas Jr. Then you point at the cop. So why you walk past them two people, the motherfucker come with that dirty ass bitch and say something to me? Yeah, bitch. No, they gonna go somewhere. I ain't going nowhere now. Since I got toys and treat a shelter.
Yes, I do love the idea of getting homeless people off of the streets. Why? Because it will make the city of DC much safer and the United States a much safer place. But I also have a question. Once they get the current homeless population off of the streets, how do they stop them from going back onto the streets? Because they are not all addicts. As we've heard from the video, that one woman, her house was burnt in the fire, so now she's homeless, right? So they're not all crazy people who made horrible decisions in life. So now they're off. How do we stop a new generation of homeless people from taking their place? Because right now, a lot of people who are having problems making sure they're bringing in enough resources to match everything rising in our current nation, right? So all they're doing is just cleaning up a quick fix, but they're not going to fix the actual problem. And the reason why I believe they're not going to fix the actual problem is because then they're going to be losing money. Because if they increase our income, tax rich and wealthy people like they did back in the 30s and 40s, if they do those type of things, they're going to lose money. Now they're still going to be extremely rich, just not as rich as they once were before. And not only that, when you have more money, you will notice you don't got to work as hard as you used to. They don't want that, because when you don't work as hard, they don't make as much money and they don't make as much product. So they have to keep people exactly where they are. And that's just my opinion. But I would love to hear you all's opinion. It doesn't matter if it's equivalent to mine or something very different. I would love for you all to write in the comment section your thoughts on this. And I will be ending this video with a bare bone truth final bite video. And I will see you all later. Like, comment, and subscribe. Bye.
As someone who stayed in a homeless shelter in DC for 2 weeks, I just want to take a second to address why Trump's plan to deal with homelessness in DC has zero basis in reality. To be clear, when I stayed in this homeless shelter, I was not actually experiencing homelessness. I was studying homelessness and urban issues as part of my degree at the University of North Carolina, and I was trying to amplify the voices of folks that were homeless. And I also want to be clear that I didn't stay there during a peak season, so I was not taking the bed away from anyone that needed it. The plan that Trump has to address homelessness, if you haven't heard of it, is essentially to offer free transportation for anyone that's experiencing homelessness to a homeless shelter, and to also offer them, and or it wasn't clear, addiction support services and mental health services. And if they refuse these services, they receive fines and ultimately jail time because they are homeless and cannot pay these fines. The reason that this plan does not make any sense when you actually take a step further and really look at it: one, homeless shelters in DC do not have the funding to provide beds for all these folks. If everyone in this plan says yes, everyone that's experiencing homelessness in DC, and they are transported to homeless shelters, we simply do not have the funding to provide beds for all these people. There is literally no way. Two, even if we were to have beds for these folks and we brought them to a homeless shelter, what I don't think people understand, especially the general public in America, is what a homeless shelter is, given the current way that we fund them. Look around. This is what the average American thinks a homeless shelter is. This is a 5-star hotel. A homeless shelter, when I stayed in one, I stayed in the nicest homeless shelter in DC. It had rats. It had bed bugs. I was sleeping 20 people to a room. Mine happened to be separated by gender, so it was all women, but that's 20 small cots that are the size of like half the size of a twin bed, and where you can literally feel the springs from the mattress poking you in your back as you sleep. That's what a homeless shelter is. just to give you a clear idea, because I don't think people really have an idea of what it is to live, like what it's like to live in a homeless shelter. It is not a 5-star hotel, which is what I think people are literally imagining. 3, when you go to a homeless shelter, you need to have a job in order to be eligible for other benefits. So when you leave that homeless shelter for 8 hours a day to go work at a job, if you're lucky enough to get one without a permanent residence and like maybe without documentation, your stuff is in this homeless shelter. There are not lockers at this homeless shelter. Your stuff, even though it may be minimal, whatever clothes you have, whatever stuff you have, might get stolen. When you come back at the end of the day after working that long shift so that you're eligible for other benefits like SNAP and like housing and urban development to eventually get permanent housing, your bed could be gone. They could just wrap up your stuff and it could be gone. Like they could give it to someone else. So that's a very real possibility. And I think the last and biggest one that people are forgetting is that people are not often coming to these homeless shelters alone. You know what a lot of homeless people have? Kids. And imagine sleeping on a mattress that is half the size of a twin mattress with you and another human being. Now you have your kid because they don't give them a separate bed. So now they're in this bed with you. And when you go off to that job that you probably have, you know where you have to leave your kid? In this homeless shelter. Because you know what we don't have? Universal childcare. And you are now leaving your kid in this room with 19 other people that probably have substance abuse issues and mental health issues. If you live in New York, you've probably experienced like a homeless person chasing you, homeless person yelling in your face. That's just reality because they're experiencing a lot of issues. They're literally living on the street. That's not their fault. But like imagine leaving your kid in a room with 19 of these people. You would never do it. And if you did, they would probably experience some sort of abuse. And then CPS comes and then you no longer have a kid. So these are like just some very basic issues. There's tons of other reasons, but these are just some very basic reasons why this plan just does not make sense. There is just no way to execute this plan. We do not have the funding to execute this plan effectively. And to send like homeless folks fines makes no sense. It is really just a plot to imprison homeless folks. That's really what this is.